What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Tide Talk. It's Wednesday, October 2nd. We're back in the away end to preview RIFC's upcoming match versus the Tampa Bay Rowdies. So cozy up, crack a beer. Let's dive into this one. Just a reminder, each episode is available on YouTube, and if you're watching now, please take a second to subscribe to our channel and click the like button on this video. You can also find us on your favorite podcast applications like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you listen on one of those, we'd really appreciate it if you took a minute to leave us a 5-star rating and a short review, as it helps more people find our podcast. If you're not already using the Club Collector app, click the link in this episode description to go get on that site and enter the code Tide Talk, all one word, to get a free pack added to your collection. I'm your host, Matt, and I'm joined by my good friend, Ryan. Ryan wasn't going to join. He was out doing big homeowner things now that he's in his house.
It's my dad's birthday.
All right. But I figured you just wanted to join just to have a Tide Talk lager, and then you did the fake beer can open. So how's your day, Ben?
It's a school night for me, so, gotta reel it in, but
I teach, so, I'm trying to And we've also got James from the RBLR Rowdies podcast. How's it going, man?
Yeah, everything is good down here, at least for me. Obviously, there are plenty of people who are still dealing with hurricane aftermath, but I was lucky enough to escape that. So at least from my perspective, all good.
Good. That's always good to hear. I know I have a friend that's in Charlotte, and a couple houses wrecked in his neighborhood, and, nothing in comparison to what happened in the mountains out there, too.
Yeah.
So just absolute wild stuff. So before we get going, James, and get talking about this match, tell us a little bit about your podcast. You guys have a cool kind of like network set up, in digging and researching what you guys do. So tell us a little bit about your podcast, how you guys got started, and what you guys do, and where to find you.
Yeah, well, the podcast is RBLR Sports. That is RBLR as in Rays, Bucks, Lightning, Rowdies. And obviously, we try to cover all of those teams. We also have a show now for the Tampa Bay Sun, the new women's team down here. So we're trying to cover everything that we can, obviously. And it was started by our producer, Eureka Wheeler. He was the guy that I think you guys originally reached out to. But Eureka is the man. He puts it all together every episode. He edits all of them. He does all of the background production work with the signage and all of the questions that we get on the screen and everything. So yeah, Eureka is actually the guy who's behind it all. And he brought me in to cover the Rowdies, and I also do the Sun on the written work, and then I'll step in for the Sun when I am needed as kind of a backup cover there. So yeah, we just try to make sure that we have as much coverage for the Tampa Bay sports scene as we can, and I think that is the long and short of it. We are dedicated to the Tampa Bay area.
Cool.
Awesome. So as we look at Tampa's season so far, so you guys are currently in 4th place. Detroit obviously just hopping you last week. You're on 46 points. Current form: win, loss, win, loss. So how's the season going so far? We know obviously you gave us a nice ass kicking many months ago, and you guys were really hot to start the season. But it seems like as of late, it's been a little more up and down. So yeah, how has the season gone for you?
Yeah. Definitely a lot more of the down than the up in the last 2 months, I would say. We did start the season a little bit better. There were several draws at the very beginning of the season, but then we picked it up as the team started to really get the playing style that our new manager, Robbie Nielsen, wanted to instill, and the players that he brought in to put in those positions seemed to really take to it. And since then, I don't know exactly how, but it does seem that the wheels have kind of fallen off it. I've used that phrase, I guess, a couple of times the last few days, but it's definitely true. The team still plays the same way that they have been. And I wouldn't say that I wouldn't describe it as a situation where the Rowdies have been found out, quote unquote, because found out means that there was something particularly hard to get about the playing style. And I don't think that that's the case. I think it's relatively easy to understand where the players are going to be trying to create their chances from, where they're going to be generally lining up to start a play, whether or not they have possession. But then the problem is, can you just continue to do it? And for a while, it seemed like the Rowdies were able to continue to do it. It seemed like we had the players and the skill, the confidence, I would say, also to be able to get through all of that. And come August, it has just really smacked us in the face. I wouldn't say that it's people reacting specifically to our style, because they were able to do that beforehand. But yeah, it's not what we want. Obviously, the last couple of games,
But yeah, like digging into your
trouble
data, it seems
with
as
the
though
scoring.
So I say digging into your guys' data, it seems as though like it's less about what the opponent's doing and more that you guys just really aren't finishing your chances, because your expected goals are like super, super high compared to where you guys ended up.
Yes, that is exactly true. That is one of the big problems that we have noted on our podcast, is that I think we lead the league in missed opportunities,
Mhm.
or if not, we're behind someone like Charleston, who also scores a bunch of goals. So, it's a situations like that. But yeah, if there's some way to close that gap between the amount of chances created and then the goals that we actually score, I think that's the silver bullet that the Tampa Bay coaching staff is actually looking for. Unfortunately, they really haven't been able to find it, and in the meantime, it seems like the team's confidence has just fallen off a cliff. You can see that when the players don't get a play to work out the way that they want, it really seems to weigh on them pretty quickly. I think that when we give up a goal, the shoulders drop immediately. Players almost already at that moment know, well, we know where this game is going. It's just been a rough couple of games for us.
Hear that. One segment that we do on our podcast after matches is called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where we highlight a good, bad, and ugly moment from the match that previously occurred. Could you give us a good, a bad, and an ugly moment from the Rowdy season so far?
Sure. Well, I would say that the best moment that I can remember, we went down 2-0 versus Charleston at home, and we actually came back and we won that game. It was a 4-2 win in the end. The third goal that put us ahead, it might have been the second goal that brought us level. I forget exactly which it was, but 17-year-old Nate Worth steps up to a free kick and puts it absolutely top bins. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And that kick started the rest of the game, obviously led us on to the 4-2 win. So that was the best moment that I can remember of this season. I think that we're really doing a lot more to integrate youth players, our own youth players, and Nate Worth, whom we signed from Tulsa, I think around March or so. But yeah, it's been great to see that those players are getting a lot more playing time, and especially Nate Worth. I think that he's been the biggest beneficiary, and so that was definitely the best moment. The bad, I would just unfortunately have to go right back to the month of August. I think the month of August in general was really bad for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Usually that's actually one of our better months, because frankly, a lot of teams come to Tampa Bay and they just can't deal with the heat. It's dreadful outside, as someone who tries to play in an adult soccer league. And of course, it's nowhere near the same level or anything, but I'm huffing and puffing within the first 10 minutes. So I can't imagine what it's like for people who are playing at a much better intensity, even if they are, of course, much fitter than I am. So yeah, it's unfortunate that that's not the way that August went for us this year. It was a struggle even when we played Miami, a team that is, I'm sure, as everybody knows, not doing well in the USL Championship
You don't say.
this year. So unfortunate for them, but we had struggled even to get past them and score the first goal in that game, and that was obviously not a good sign. The ugly would definitely be our home loss versus Loudoun. I would point to that, because not that Loudoun is a bad team on the same level as Miami, but they're not a team that I would say we should be losing to at home, especially after having lost to them also up in Virginia. So yeah, that's probably the ugly, is the losing the double versus Loudoun United.
Absolutely. So one other segment we do on our show after matches is called RIFC in 3, and that's where people write in with a 3-word review of the match. Can you give a 3-word review of the Tampa season so far?
Well, my 3 words would just be what has happened. My what has happened, because we were on a certain level, and then, like I said, we just hit that. I don't know. We hit the wall. We hit the cliff. Something along the way, and somebody at some point down the line is going to come a couple of years down the road and say, I think this is what happened, or I think that's what happened, and we'll see what it was. But I just can't, I can't for the life of me figure out how it's gone from such a, third place overall to now we've dropped to 4th place, and we're not even sure that we're going to hold on to that.
It is a tough, quick turnaround.
Yeah, this league is brutal. That's what
we looked at it like, we started poor, we hit form, we went poor again. So like, it's just a lot of roller coasters. I think it speaks to the parity in the league, really. And kind of what that is. But do you know of anyone making the trip to Rhode Island? Is there any, pretty, I guess, long-term traveling support for the Rowdies?
There are people who would like to make the trip. I don't know if I've seen anybody specifically saying that they were going to be able to do this one, because I've definitely seen people at Hartford games and back when the New York Red Bulls 2 team was in the USL Championship, we had people regularly show up to those. So I don't know if there's somebody who lives up in the Northeast who can make the trip. But like I said, unfortunately, I haven't seen anybody specifically saying that this one was one of the ones they were going to.
And one other bonus question before we kind of get into looking at the match. Love to hear your thoughts on Zachary Harivo and the transfer that saw him come to Rhode Island.
Yeah, I think Zach Harivo is obviously a very good player, and he's shown that at multiple different places. I think before we brought him in, he was at Birmingham, and his play there was what I think the coaching staff saw when they said, "This is a good player. I would like to get this guy on my team." But unfortunately, during his time down here in Florida, he was just injured a lot.
Yeah.
So we actually didn't get to see a whole ton of what Zach Harivo can do down here. I think that he might have started 2 or 3 games at the most. And within those, he did get a goal, I remember. But it was just unfortunate. And then by the time that he actually got himself fit in 2024, we had already moved into this playing style that Robbie Nielsen had instituted. And at that point, it was working for us. So it was hard for anybody who was on the outside looking in to really force their way into the starting lineup and get more playing time. Unfortunately, I think with him being probably a better paid player on any given team, they looked at it's possible they looked at the salary and said, with how much we're paying him and with how much time he's getting right now, it's probably not worth it. Maybe we need to look at selling him and recoup that money. So that's speculation, by the way. I don't know that for sure, but I would assume, I would assume that that's the case. And I wish that we had more time out of him, because he's obviously a good player and he's turned around and done extremely well as far as I can see.
Right on.
Yeah, no, we've been very happy with him so far, and long may it continue.
Yeah.
So as we start to turn towards this match, obviously we got a little taste of Tampa early on in the season, but we always like to shout out 3 players to watch on the opposing team for our fans who might not be as familiar with the opposition. So who do you think Rhode Island FC should be kind of nervous about, or who our fans might be interested in seeing on the pitch Saturday?
Well, I would point to a couple of players. The first one is going to be our left wing back, Blake Bodley. He has been one of the better contributors this season in terms of chance creation, in terms of assists as well. The problem, just like with everyone else on this team, is that it has dried up a little bit since the late summer months. So he is still one of our better contributors as far as we have those at the moment. So I would point to him being one of our good players. I would point to up top, it's going to be a combination. I'm gonna cheat a little bit and say that it's Manuel Arteaga and Cal Jennings. Probably though, just to make it easier, I would say Manuel Arteaga. He's going to be the main striker that we have, trying to get on the end of crosses and the like from both Blake Bodley and the right wing back. I'm assuming that'll be Pacific Nyongabire, but those are the 2 players to start with, and then the last one, Blake Bodley, Manuel Arteaga, and Leo Fernandez. He is a club legend down here in Tampa Bay. And if he has been coming off of a very long-term injury, so he probably will not start. However, he's been getting more playing time off of the bench each game. And I'm assuming that will continue here versus Rhode Island. And if he does do that, this will actually be not only us seeing him get back more into the team, but it will be his record appearance for the Tampa Bay Rowdies in the modern era at 174 appearances. So I'm assuming with that kind of weight on his shoulders, Leo Fernandez is going to come on at some point in the second half, and he's going to say, whatever the score, whatever the situation, he's going to say, I'm going to make this my game. That's what I'm going to point to right now.
I know you kind of mentioned it with him coming on as a sub, but our guy Nate Ski always comes in the chat and asks any super subs that could come on and really influence this game. So maybe anyone else outside of him who, I know this is very like starting 11 dependent and tactically dependent, but anyone else who can really come off the bench and have a big impact on this one?
Yeah, there are two players that are big super subs right now. Leo, I already mentioned, and the other one is actually from Cranston, Rhode Island, and that is Damian Rivera. He
Yeah, we
is
had that
a
in the
New
chat from Kevin. What about him in front of his family at home?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Damian Rivera is a great young player. He's on loan to us from New England Revolution, and we'll see how it turns out when I believe his contract is up at the end of the year. So we'll see how that turns out. But he has been exactly the role of a super sub for us over the course of the season. The way that we have played, usually we would see the Tampa Bay Rowdies kind of wear a team down over the course of, let's say, 60, 70, 80 minutes, depending on how the game goes. Then Damian Rivera comes on as the late sub, and he is just as direct as a player can be. He will get the ball at his feet, put his head down, and he will run right at the defender. That's what he wants to do. He wants to dribble at people who are tired, and he wants to dribble at people who are just sick of having to deal with it all game long. And if he can obviously get himself in a good position, then he will get a good shot off. He has quite a few goals over the course of the season, and he has, I think, more assists as well. So he's very good at knowing when to pass, when to shoot, all of that kind of stuff. But he loves to come on as a late substitute, loves to put his head down and just run at players who are sick of being out there on the field. So he is exactly the definition of that.
And I'm sure he'll have a little something further to prove playing in front of a lot of family and friends and a local crowd as well. But we've got a question from Chuck in the chat. He wants to know, has your goalkeeper, Jordan Farr's play dropped off a bit? Or do you think he has been consistent all season?
I would say he's been at a consistent level all season. I just don't know if it's the same level where he was when he won the USL Championship Goalkeeper of the Year. So in a sense, it has dropped off, but I would say it hasn't dropped off over the course of this year specifically. I think that there are a couple of moments that I can point to, and I wish I could remember the specific games. I'm sure my co-host Carlos and I are going to have to go back and do this at the end of the year, but there have been multiple games when Jordan Farr has come out of his box to try and collect the ball. And usually he's got the confidence to do that, the timing to do that, what have you. But every so often, 3 or 4 times maybe, he has come out completely whiffed on the ball. And that leads usually to a pretty serious chance, obviously. So right. I think that one of those directly led to a goal. One of them, we might have had a very nice save by a defender, Aaron Guillen, coming in late, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, it's not been his best season for sure. I think Jordan Farr would readily admit that. He's still a good goalkeeper, of course, and he's definitely saved our butts a lot more times than I wish he would have had to. But I would assume that he would agree that this is not his best season.
Got it. Well, our guy Tyler in the chat says between the late scoring and the keeper coming out, sounds a bit familiar for us. We've seen a bit of that with Coque Vegas as well. So totally understand that one.
Gotcha.
Awesome. So as we wind towards this match, please, everybody start getting your score predictions in the chat here. But, if let's say at the end of the day, Tampa was to win this game, what do you think the keys to that victory would be? And vice versa, if Rhode Island were to win, what do you think would happen in the match?
Well, in all honesty, I think Rhode Island winning would be more of the same for the Tampa Bay Rowdies lately. It would be us giving up the game in the way that we are want to do lately. It's unfortunate that the Rowdies have been a relatively good team all season, and then they've just been unable to kind of hit that last gear, I guess, that they need to, especially with playoffs coming up, of course. If we do win, it will be because, frankly, we've had a little bit of time off to get our heads straight, in my opinion. I think that we're going to probably end up playing the same way that we mostly have been. It'll be Josh Perez and Danny Crisostomo, or probably Ben Bender, I guess. He's also come in on loan and he's taken up that role. So it'll be Josh Perez and Ben Bender linking up with the left and the right wing back respectively, and they'll be trying to find Manuel Arteaga and Cal Jennings up top. But if they have trouble doing that, of course, then it will just be because this team has started to have trouble recently, and we have been really failing to connect on our passes, especially when trying to move the ball forward, especially when trying to get the ball into the opposition box. So Rhode Island have a team that's honestly ready to be beat. It's a real, I guess the phrase mentality monster is usually used the other way. It's used for people who have the good mentality, who are never let themselves be beat. They never know when to lay down, when to quit. The Rowdies are the opposite right now. Their mentality monster is that they're almost ready to quit. So it's very unfortunate to put it in those terms, but that's kind of the conclusion that I've come to. And I would say that that's probably the way that it's going to play out. We will either be in a good place mentally and able to complete our passes, able to complete our chances, or we simply won't, and then we'll give it up and we'll let the whole game go.
I hear that. We've been in those places as well this season. It's like, and this one will be interesting without Jose Quazera, without Noah Fuzan. It's going to be interesting to see what the lineup will look like for this RIFC team, what the tactics will look like, and how all of that kind of shakes up. But we're going to start reading out some of the score predictions from the chat. Susan's got a 3-0 RIFC, very advantageous there. Kevin's got 2-2 draw. Tyler is stealing Kevin's with 2-2. Sarah's got 1-1. Ewan's got 1-0 RIFC. Lads, it's Tampa. Susan also added, one day my 3-0 will be right. Coach has a 1-1 draw. This will be the draw game. Matt's got a 1-1 draw. Sarah says, will we beat the draw record? If we do, it will be the draw record, right? If this one ends in a tie, it will tie the record.
Tie the record, yeah.
Tie the records, not beat it. But I could definitely see that happening as well. It would, as Kevin says, draw the draw record. We've also got Chuck's got a 2-1 RIFC win. I struggled a lot with this one. I'll go first. I'll take the heat. Noah's been so good for us, and I think he's going to be a really big miss. Quazera has been so good for us as well. Gabi had a bit of a rough patch last time he started out at left wing back. I doubt Kano changes the formation. I think we see Clay Holstead back in the back line, and I hate every word of that sentence I just said. You need your best midfielder in the midfield. That's just, I'll die on that hill. But I think Jack P gets the start. I think he continues to struggle. I don't think it's an easy walk in the park for him by any means. I've got 1-1 as well. I've got a draw. I've got a lot of chances in this one that neither team can really, kind of convert. A lot of half chances, but I see this one going down 1-1. Whoever wants to go next, feel free to take it.
Well, I can jump in. I know, obviously, there has been a lot of draws predicted so far, and I will say we recorded our podcast last night, so my prediction was already out, and I'm going to stick with it. And I actually also went with the 2-2 draw. So I guess I'm not really going against the grain on this one.
Sure. If Ryan comes in with a draw, there's no way this game ends in a draw. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. So Tampa is 7th away from home in form on points this season. Our home form is solid with win-win, draw, win-win. This one's going to be tough. So obviously the defense really needs to be on point here. As James mentioned, Arteaga, Jennings, Bodley really test the defense, but hoping that Turnbull at the right wing back position can really keep Bodley busy on defense. And I actually do think this could be a good game for Gabby to come in at that left wing back. As we've been talking, we're really thinking about really like Arteaga and Jennings and the threat that they'll provide. And that actually might simplify the role that Gabby needs to play at that left wing back. If we more tuck him in as that traditional fullback, have him helping out back there, that could end up really helping there. The thing is, we just can't let Tampa score early. We can't let them kind of build that momentum, build that confidence, and remember kind of how to play the game. So I originally was going to go 2-2, but as we were talking, I think if we can do our job and not necessarily park the bus, but like really keep solid defensively, I could see this being a really weird 1-0 Rhode Island FC victory.
Interesting. Yeah.
I don't know if I believe myself, but
you give yourself some time before you put it into the prediction league table.
I'm stick anything on video. I'll stick with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, coach says on here that, RFC has to come out with a heavy defensive presence and has to change that 4-4-2 with a heavy defensive back line. It'll be interesting to see what Coach Kano does in this one. he has changed when he's needed to. He has been stubborn on other times. So without two starters available, and not really much else on the bench to offer as far as slotting into those two spots, you have to figure it's going to be Jack P for Noah and either Gavi or Clay, playing that other wingback position. So
the thing is, I think we could
it's just
see
intriguing.
So while Kano's been stubborn this season at times, he also, I think, has shown the ability to adapt and to try different things. Like literally last match, the Ibarra, kind of Noah, Harivao, Clay midfield kind of box that he was playing. I thought that was really interesting and something we hadn't seen. So I could see him almost trying to muck the game up a bit in that way, playing kind of almost extra midfielders to try to, keep them at bay. And then again, if Gabby does play, kind of keeping him as more of a reserved wingback, I think could end up really helping out with this specific matchup. So I'm going to go 1-0. We'll see. But I think, as everyone in the chat has, this game does have draw written on it. But I really think it's going to come down to who scores first and when that goal goes in, which is not the most shocking soccer take ever. But yeah, team put ball in goal is better than the other team. But
team put ball in goal, good.
But at the same time, I do think if Tampa gets an early one, I could see this being a really tough one for us.
Awesome. James, definitely wanted to thank you again for taking some time out to join us and have you on the show. Any final thoughts you want to get across before we do hop off over here?
Well, you guys did say you were wondering who would come up there, and I will not be able to come up to this game, but I would absolutely love to get up to Rhode Island once the new stadium is built and ready to go. That is definitely on my, there are a ton that are on my bucket list. I haven't even been to the Pittsburgh stadium, and that's been around for ages, but I would love to get up there and see this one amongst many around the league. So I'll have to take you guys up on that in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do, feel free to send us a DM and we'll hook you up with where to go. Party with us beforehand. And
there we go. We'll
make it a good time.
Yeah, I think our shirt sponsor Breeze, I think they have a pretty good route from Tampa to Providence. So
it's pretty cheap if you fly Breeze. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good to know. All right.
I actually just got a Breeze email this week, and it was all flights to Florida, and one way were in the $30 for St. Pete, it's insane. Orlando,
you don't get a seatbelt or a seat. You have to.
Okay.
You actually have to help fly the plane. I've flown Breeze before. It's totally fine. There's nothing more. As Sarah says, it's cheap. If you're flying solo or by yourself, I think especially just being a dude, you're like, yep, I can do this. This is fine. No worries. But Ryan, any final thoughts you got for us?
No, excited to see the boys back out there. I think this one's interesting because I think Tampa is better than their form and stuff has shown. And we have a bit of revenge. I think that was one of the games that every time we talk about worst matches of the year, I think Tampa's very high on the list for a lot of people. So hopefully we can dish out a little bit of revenge at home. And the boys have obviously enjoyed playing there as of late a bit more than they were in the past. So we'll see, but always excited to see them back out there.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for joining, James. That'll wrap things up for this one. Remember, Tide Talk is more than just a podcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for daily social media content. Click that link in this episode description to follow all of our accounts. I've been your host, Matt, for Ryan and James from RBLR Rowdies podcast. Thanks again for joining. We'll see you next time. And as always, up the tide.
Up the tide.